For the longest time, we only had the legacy manufacturers, especially here in North America, Japanese imports, German imports, and that was pretty much it. Behind me though is the 2025 VinFast VF9. It's the follow-up to the VF8, which was their 2-row compact crossover. Behind me is a 3-row VF9. So the question then becomes, does being first or close to first give you enough of a heads up on the competition to win? I think in a new market, first impressions are really everything. You're introducing a brand new face, a brand new product to a brand new group of consumers. That's why VinFast hired Pininfarina, yes, Pininfarina, to design the VF9. I think versus the VF8, it looks so much better. The VF8 had these kind of split headlights. It looked like a pretty standard crossover, which I was fine with, but the VF9 takes it to another level. This is a great looking 3-row SUV. I don't think that's up for debate, really. It's got a ton of aero up here. It's got this insane vent through the hood. We saw this a few months ago with the Polestar 3, but not to this level. It's got about triple the airflow, if I had to guess, running through here, and that contributes to the range, which we'll get into a second. We've got a couple more vents down here. LED light bar, of course, on the front. It does some fancy light tricks when you start it up, when you turn it off. We've got fog lights. The one I'm testing today is the Plus model. So the VF9 comes in 2 trim levels, the Eco and the Plus. They're both all-wheel drive. They both have 2 motors, and they both have 402 horsepower, 457 pound-feet of torque. The Eco gets an EPA estimated range of 530 kilometers. This one here in front of me, about 60 less kilometers at 470, 21-inch wheels. The Eco gets 20-inch wheels. So the battery, 123 kilowatt hours of usable battery capacity. I have only driven one other EV with a larger battery than this, and that was the Ford F-150 Lightning. It's a game of adding more and more tech, more features, which then gets more weight, and then you need a larger battery, a bigger battery to power everything to get the same range you would have if you just had a lighter vehicle. The VF9 weighs 6,500 pounds in Plus trim. That's 2 GT3 RSs stacked on top of each other. Let that sink in. So does that weight actually affect how the VF9 drives? Well, we're gonna find that out in a second, but if you don't know, VinFast is a Vietnamese auto manufacturer. They recently moved their headquarters to Singapore, but these cars are built in Vietnam, which is kind of cool, and you might have a few questions about the quality. Now let's see if it has a frunk. First off, to do that, we've got to see how the door handles work. You just hit that, the door kind of pops out to greet you. It does have soft closed doors. That is a huge win. It is a little bit of an oddly shaped frunk. They're clearly kind of working around a few different components here. We've got a fuse box, access to the battery, and that's about it. Not massive, of course. These vents in the hood are taking up a little bit of space, but I'll take the range. Some Plus models come with the running boards, some do not. This one has the running boards. They're not the greatest. I don't have full confidence in these running boards. I'm just gonna go out and say it. Also, I don't know if you guys can see this, they are tilted very slightly down. So, you know, I haven't slipped yet, but is my time coming? I'm not sure. Here's a good look at the quarter panel. I'm not sure what's going on here. It kind of stands out. It's really just putting a focus on the VinFast logo, which there are quite a few of. And then coming back here, you do get the LED light bar on the back. This is, it's not quite Range Rover, but it just kind of blends in. It doesn't scream EV. It doesn't try to stand out. To give you a bit of context, it is longer in length than an EV9 from Kia, but shorter than a Ford Expedition. And standing next to it, I'm 5'9". It feels like I'm taller than the VF9. It is actually, it kind of visually, when you stand next to it, it feels like a lifted wagon. It is incredibly long, but it feels more like a lifted wagon than something like a Rivian R1S that has a little bit more off-road capability. But let's start with the trunk and then work our way forward. You can see we've got 2 cameras. We'll get to those in a second. Those have more to say than they are right now. So you just hit that button real quick. A little bit of back seat room. It doesn't really slope off in the rear here, so it actually has some usable space. As you can see, this one's been spec'd as a 6-seater, so you can actually spec it as a 7-seater as well, but the Eco is not able to be spec'd that way. Of course, we have that center console, which we'll get to in a second. Got some outlets back here, easy enough. USB-C, USB-C, and there's a ton of room in the third row. 0 complaints for the third row. They also have their own climate control, which you can control from the front screen up there. To close it, wait, get away, it's not safe, and then it begins closing. They've told me that's for safety. Some of the fit and finish is not quite there. Now we do have the quilted vegan leather. No, it's not real leather. Rear seats do have 4-way lumbar. That's a flex. There you go. You can control your media, your bass, your treble, your heated and ventilated seats, and massage seats in the rear. Here's something important. The front seats also, of course, have everything the back seats do, ventilated, heated, and massage. These massage seats are not bad. They're better than the Mitsubishi Outlander massage seats, which are a sad excuse for massage. And they're better than the Genesis GV80 massage seats. Genesis was smart enough not to call those massage seats, but this is better than both of those. For context, not nearly as good as the best from Acura and a few other manufacturers. Couple things with this. This is good, both good and bad. First off, the third row is crazy. I've never seen a vehicle ever with a third row that has a glass roof like that. The other thing you need to note about a glass roof like this is climate control. It gets cooler much quicker than it would with a traditional roof. And then of course in the summertime, it could potentially get a little bit hot. This one is tinted from the factory. In the center here, 2 cup holders, pretty standard, and a wireless charger. We get inside, we're greeted by a giant 15.6-inch screen, and I'm sitting way too far away. There is no on or off button for the VF9. You just put your foot on the brake. Everything kind of beeps to life and it moves me into my saved position. It's already yelling at me to put my seatbelt on. You guys, things are about to fall apart, or are they? I'm not sure, but that would almost be a deal breaker for me. If my vehicle's in park and it's screaming at me to put my seatbelt on, that's some nanny state stuff right there. First thing you'll notice is, of course, there is no typical gauge display right in front of the steering wheel. Tesla style, not my favorite thing in the world. It has an incredibly comprehensive heads-up display. I love that. It displays your battery too, turns for your navigation, all that kind of stuff. Pretty good materials. I'm so glad, on the positive, that the VF9 has 0 haptic feedback buttons anywhere. So the steering wheel, radar cruise control is of course here. That's all very easy to use. Even has a little VinFast logo in it. Would you look at that? No gloss black, no piano black. How does VinFast get this, but so many other manufacturers don't? So it's got this kind of, this feels just like plastic, but it looks like brushed aluminum, and that's kind of a good metaphor for a few of the other features. So on the main screen, there are these widgets too, so you can hold them down kind of like an Android phone. I don't know if that's the same on iPhone, and you can move those around, you can move your apps around. There aren't any apps you're available to download yet. There have been a few hiccups that have happened. I got a emergency parking brake warning that popped up last night for 5 minutes and then went away. It fixed itself. What is this? Lane inoperative. Adaptive cruise control inoperative. Door defect, service required. Climate control. There are your fan speed, your temperature, that's always there, but to pull up the whole menu, it's just one tap away. Like I said, massage seats, they're there. We can control third row climate control from here. It hasn't frozen yet. Android Auto has disconnected twice, but it hasn't frozen like, oh, I don't know, the Mustang Mach-E did like 3 times on me. The whole system froze up, but let's not harp on that. We do have a 360 cam. It's a 360 cam, okay? It has cameras on the vehicle. That's all you need to know. Kind of entertaining, actually, to look at. On the left side here, we have all our controls. There you go. We can open the hatch in the back. We control our headlights from here, fog lights, everything is in the screens. But at least they didn't pull a Polestar and put the control to open the glove box in the screen. Whenever you adjust your seat or make an adjustment, a steering wheel adjustment, which is also in the screen here, and we use the controls on the steering wheel. But once you do that, it'll pop up with a prompt on the screen being like, hey, I noticed you moved your settings. Do you want that to be your new saved setting? Yes. Cater to me, VinFast. I've never seen another vehicle do that. Awesome. There's not a lot of storage space. This center glove box, I have no idea why the walls of this center glove box are like 6 inches thick. That's unnecessary to me. Underneath here, we should have some storage. It also has a heated steering wheel, and I was about to say it's great, but this morning I turned it on and it just straight up did not turn on for about 15 minutes. Turn it on, turn it off, turn the car off, turn it back on, nothing worked, and then randomly, 15 minutes later, oh, now it decided to get my hands warm, and it was cold this morning. Like, if I test drove it and that happened on the test drive, no, I'm out. I'm going to Kia, I'm going to Hyundai. Like, that would be game over for me. All right, now the important part. How does it drive? Foot down. Little bit of wheel spin for the front wheels there. That's not bad. So 402 horsepower, 457 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in about 6.6 seconds. 457 pound-feet is plenty. I didn't think it was gonna do the weight of this vehicle justice. I didn't think it was gonna be enough. I was wrong. It's actually a perfectly usable, perfectly daily drivable, just appliance. It is, it works, it rides well for the most part. There have been moments where I've been driving, wind noise isn't too bad. There's a little bit of wind noise from the mirrors, but overall, road noise is great. And there have been moments where I've just kind of forgotten that I'm driving anything, really. It's been quiet and comfortable, but then you hit a bigger bump. Yeah, over big bumps, it's just not as controlled as I would expect. But again, 6,500 pounds, what do you expect, right? It feels like the body just has movements that shouldn't be there. Not bouncing, but just not as controlled and composed as I would expect. Brakes are pretty good. I have zero complaints over the brakes until we get to the menus. So if we hit our drive mode select here, I don't use sport, I just put it in normal. That works really well. If you put it in eco, the throttle mapping eases up a ton and it's just really smooth. You really have to work to get all the power. In all 3 drive modes, there is a little bit of a delay in the pedal and how much torque is actually being sent to the wheels. So like if you quickly jab at the pedal, nothing happens. Not that you would ever do that, but just as a demonstration. Another thing, in all of these drive modes, also your regen brake settings. You don't have one pedal drive. That's not a deal breaker for me. I don't really like one pedal drive, but that's besides the point. If you change your drive mode out of normal or your regen brake setting out of high, it has a warning here that comes up: to ensure safety standards in your region, this feature will reset to default value in the next driving cycle, meaning you get out overnight, you get back in the next day, and it resets to high regen braking and normal driving mode. VinFast, do I have to tell you, we don't have any regulations or quote unquote safety standards in our region that require you as a manufacturer to return to a normal drive mode. You can't even have the pedal mapping, the throttle pedal mapping in a lazier setting, an eco setting. You can't do it. Regen braking, I hate high regen braking. That would be another deal breaker for me personally. Now you guys make up your own mind, but the warnings are there for no reason. building. It doesn't give you all of the torque right away. The way it's tuned, it just kind of slowly rolls in, which for most VF9 buyers is probably fine. It's something that they probably will never notice, and that goes with most of what I'm saying here. And that brings me to the steering. So the VF9 has a very slow steering rack. What that means, it just requires more input to turn the wheels a certain amount. So for any luxury vehicle like an S-Class, an E-Class, or any large vehicle, that's generally a good thing because you don't want those little movements to kind of upset the car. The VF9 kind of takes it a step further. Here we go. Little movements on center like that, quick movements on center, do nothing. You know what it feels like? Have you ever played N64? After years and years, the joysticks get worn out and there's that little like loose, it's like a loose tooth just on center there. It feels like an old N64 controller when you're doing those small little movements, right? And that's not a big deal. That's actually not a problem 90% of the time. In the corners though, if you're pushing the VF9, if you're hucking into a corner, you have some lateral G's loaded up, then what happens is any little adjustments mid-corner, you can't feel them. They basically make no impact on what you feel as a driver, and there's such a big disconnect when that happens. So yeah, if you're gonna drive your VF9 fast, the steering begins to fall apart when you drive it quickly. But again, as an appliance, the VF9 works well. It works really well for what it sets out to do. It's quiet, it's comfortable most of the time. Now, it all depends, it all comes down to price. So let's talk about it. Well, there it is, you guys. VinFast VF9. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm not sure if you've caught on yet, but the bigger picture with the VF9 is just, it's a jack of all trades. It tries to do everything all at once. And I get that, you know, when you're going up against the competition and you look at a stat or a feature list on paper and you see it's got soft close doors, massage seats front and second row, and all of this stuff, and a ton of range. Frankly, it has a ton of range for the price. You just think, hey, this is a great vehicle. But there are also a lot of little glitches and quirks that need to be worked out. What I think VinFast would have been better doing is just mastering a few things and really refining them versus just trying to stuff as much tech and features into the car as possible. That's just me. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As far as competition goes, pricing is the key concern here, right? So the Eco model starts at $74,000 Canadian. The Plus here is $78,000 Canadian. For you guys in the States, the Eco starts slightly less and the Plus is about $70,000. So it is a lot of money. Now, if you get a three-row Tesla, that's a Model X. You cannot get a Model X for $78,000. An EQB, if you get a base all-wheel drive Mercedes EQB, it's a little bit less than this actually, but then Mercedes tacks on a ton of options for a lot of money. And then if you look at the most direct competitor, the Kia EV9, then you're looking at a lot cheaper to start. But again, it doesn't have all these features. So as a luxury product, it works. It's just not to the level of some of the European competitors. So that's my verdict. Super interesting vehicle. Subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.